Dr. Catherine Roxanne Growy was an Ohio plastic surgeon who caught the attention of the state medical board when it was revealed that she had been live streaming some patient surgeries on TikTok and other social media. The medical board permanently revoked Growy's license to practice medicine in Ohio in July. The Dispatch spoke with Sarah Duckett, a resident of the Tampa, Florida area, who came to Columbus to have a breast augmentation done by Growy. Here's that full conversation we had with Sarah via video chat.
So I was in the military, and in the military, I had a very bad injury. I broke my neck. And one of the treatments that they used to keep me from being paralyzed is they gave me high doses of steroids. And the number one side effect of steroids is weight gain. And I blew up to almost 200 pounds. I was like 197, 198 right there. And that's way bigger than I've ever been. I've been like 135, 140 my entire life. And when I got off the steroids after having my neck surgery and everything, they fixed it all. I lost a bunch of the weight, and obviously, much like a woman who's had a baby, my body looked different after I lost a substantial amount of weight. So I've been
Sure.
looking for a plastic surgeon. I live in Florida, so there's no lack of talent in Florida. I'm in Tampa. All you got to do is go over to Orlando or just ride out to Miami, and you throw a quarter down the street and you can hit 50 plastic surgeons. But what drew me to Dr. Roxy was that she was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying anything against male plastic surgeons, but I feel like a female plastic surgeon better understands the female body because she has the same parts I do. So I watched Dr. Roxy on social media for 2 years. I followed her on Instagram, and then I got on her Snapchat channel. I watched her surgeries daily for 2 years, and
What
just
year
on
was
a
it at that
whim,
point?
from 18 to 19, then from 19 to 20.
Okay.
And just on a whim one day, I saw that she offers financing. So I applied for the financing and I got approved. And I was like, oh, I can do this. Okay. So I talked to my husband about it, and we budgeted it, and I was like, this is definitely something that we could do. Okay. So I reached out to her and I did the consultation, and it was a virtual consultation. I never got to talk to her like face to face or anything. I had to take a bunch of pictures and then send them in and tell her, what I liked, what I didn't like. Like I went through and circled certain areas, and like I did a close up of some areas, and I wanted to concentrate mostly on my breasts. There were other parts of my body that I'd wanted to address later on, but mostly it was my breasts that I wanted to concentrate on. So she told me that I would benefit most from a lift with an augmentation. So doing a lift to deal with the sagginess, and then the augmentation, obviously, to give me like the upper fullness that I wanted. I put the deposit down and I flew up there in August or September. It was either August or September of 2021.
Okay.
I took my husband's Nana with me, and we stayed in an Airbnb, and I went in the day before for my in-person pre-op. I had already had all my blood work and done everything done down here in Florida, my chest X-ray, all of that good stuff. My physician's release. Went in at my pre-op appointment. I also had some fillers done and everything, and was feeling good and was really really excited. So I go
Can't
in the
blame you.
nesk day. I was so excited. I go in the next day. I have the surgery itself went fine. They had no problems in the surgery. They had no problems getting me to sleep. And I'm somebody who has red in my hair, and for some reason, redheads have the most trouble with anesthesia. Our body metabolizes it differently, but they didn't have any problems with me. They got me to sleep right away. I woke up in PACU and I was in a lot of pain, but it wasn't like sharp pain. It was like someone was pouring boiling water on my chest, and that's because during a lift, basically what they do is they literally they skin the breast. They pull all the skin back to view the muscle, and like they take the skin and the fat down to the muscle. She removes some fat from under here, and then basically they take the skin, they stretch it, and that's how it does the lift. But it wasn't too bad. They gave me some more pain meds. And then I went back to the Airbnb, and everything was fine. I think it was 3 days later, I flew back home to Florida. I had the most trouble with, and I've got pictures of it. I can tell you when it was. Don't worry, I'm not going to show pictures on here, unless you guys ask for them. So I went up there. I had the surgery. All right, here it is. So the most trouble that I had was, I think, 10 days post-op. And in the military, I was a medic. So I know what post-op infections look like. I know what dermatitis looks like, stuff like that. And within 10 days of that's 1 week. Okay, so I had the day after surgery, 3 days post-op, 2 days post-op. So they put, I didn't have any stitches. I had dermal glue. 2 days post-op, the tape, the tape that they put over the dermabond, came off. And I let them know, like, hey, the tape came off. They go, oh, well, the tape always lasts 2 weeks. I'm like, well, it didn't.
Right. This was 2 days. This was 2 days instead of 2 weeks.
2 days. Yeah. So this is on September 27th, 2 days post-op. And it was, so the way that a mastectomy scar looks, it looks just like an anchor. It comes straight down from the areola and the nipple, and then it goes like this.
Okay.
So if you think of like a cat's face, you know how their lip comes down like this, and then it's like that. That's what it looks like when they do the mastectomy. So although I still had the tape around this part of my breast, and like here and here, the where it comes down, and then half of the anchor down here, the tape came off. And I sent pictures to Dr. Roxy's office, and at no point in time did I get to speak to or correspond with Dr. Roxy post-op. It was always either Tia or it was Dr. Domingo. So I ended up having to go to the hospital twice. The first time, I believe it was 10 days post-op. And the second time,
at that point.
Yes, I'm already back in Florida. I was running a fever. I was noticing some rather disturbing discharge, and she told me to just, keep it clean, keep it dry, keep the dressings on there, and everything was fine. And I was like, okay. And she had given me antibiotics to take, and I was taking them, but it just, I don't know. I went to the hospital. The doctors there did a swab of it, and they said that I had cellulitis, and it was most likely caused from an unsterile surgical setting. And when I go back and I watch the video of my surgery, they were coming in and out of the OR. In the OR, you cannot have anything go below the sterile field, which is anything from the waist down. And they were coming and going through the ER. There was a girl named Paige who was pregnant, and they show her on the Snapchat video. So I mean, I knew that they were coming in and out of the OR, and that was just normal on her Snapchat feed. So I went to the hospital, and they did a swab. They said, "Yeah, you've got a post-op infection. Here's some medication for it." They gave me some clindamycin to treat it, and then they put me on a different medication, something stronger to deal with the infection from the inside.
Sure.
And then I think it was 6 weeks post-op. I was doing a dressing change with my husband, and I had something called wound dehiscence, and that's where the wound literally rips open. So where my incision
That had
was,
to be terrifying.
it was. We were putting the dressing on there, and like we actually watched the skin separate, and it was almost like a blister that had ruptured because it like spit fluid out, and it terrified me. I was convinced, because I'd also been picking stitches that were just like coming undone and just poking through the skin, and I'm like, this is not normal. So we went back to the OR or the ER, and I walked in the ER holding my breast, and they're looking at me like, why are you holding your breast? I'm like, because it's going to fall out. I was convinced that it had ripped open and it was going to fall out. I was convinced. Um, so they said, no, it's not going to fall out. There's all kinds of layers there and everything. I know it's probably very scary, but it's not going to fall out. The next day, my husband called because we couldn't get anybody on the phone from the post-operative team at 11 o'clock at night, because they said, oh, there's someone here 24 hours. No, there wasn't. He talked to Dr. Domingo the next day, and Dr. Domingo had the audacity to tell my husband, stop taking her to the hospital. And apparently, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's like a whole Facebook page about this that I'm on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm part of it now, just to find people like you.
And apparently, I am not the first person that Dr. Domingo said, stop going to the hospital. He told my husband, stop taking her to the hospital. They're filling her head with these ideas. My guy, they sent a swab of my breast to the lab, and the lab says she has cellulitis. So it's not that they're filling my head with these ideas. It's this is really happening. And I continue to tell her, listen, I'm having these issues. I'm having these issues. I'm having these issues. So throughout the entire time, I'm letting Dr. Roxy's team know that like I'm having all these issues. And she says, well, just be patient. It'll get better. It's a marathon. It's not a race. It's a marathon. And I'm just like, okay, because she's a doctor, right? Like we as a society, we're ignorant enough to think that doctors wouldn't ever tell us something wrong, right? Like they would never lie to us. They have our best interests at heart, especially when you spend $10,900 on something. So
you had to have felt like, I imagine too, like you needed more than a few metaphors of like, it's not a marathon,
yes,
it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
I need you to like actually hear me as a person, and not just like a chart. Like I'm an actual human being. Can you please take a look at this? Because there's no way that anybody who has been medically trained, even not medically trained, can look at the pictures of the complications that I had and think that that's normal. There's no way. I went to see two of my other doctors, and both of them looked at the wounds, and they were like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah. I go, well, what does the surgeon say? The surgeon says, just give it time. It's got to heal from the inside. And my general practitioner was like, you need to go to like a wound care center or something. And I was like, no, they told me not to do that. And I didn't want to do anything else to cause further complications. So
Sure.
it got to be about 6 or 7 months post-op, and I was like, I am not happy. I am not happy at all. I went in December to show her like everything that's going on. So my first surgery was in September. I went in December to show her all the wounds and everything, because it wasn't
back
easy.
up there, you mean?
I flew back up there, yes.
Oh wow.
In December, yes. And I was like, this is not normal. And while I was there, she also offered piercings of the breasts in her clinic. Unbeknownst to me, nobody was a licensed piercer. Yeah. So when you had the surgery like mine, she would not do the piercing because you risk nipple death. I guess that doing too much trauma to the nipple can cause it to die. And I was like, well, that makes sense. So I went up there in December. I was like, look. And she was like, yeah, it's totally normal. Okay. And I had them pierced. One of them was pierced so shallow that it ended up coming through. And I know that you're all gentlemen on here. I apologize. But
No worries.
it ended up the ring ended up coming through where, if I was breastfeeding a child, where the milk would come out. It wasn't on the other side of the nipple. It came through the center of the nipple. Yeah. And I sent a picture of it. I'm like, Dr. Roxy, WTF, man. And she's like, okay, just take it out, let it heal. And at this point, we had already talked about doing a revision because I had these just god awful scars. My
Mhm.
husband, he was so supportive through all this. We tried to make light about it so I didn't get so depressed. We named them Frank and Barb, as in Frankenstein and Barbosa. Yeah. So
Good sense of humor
I,
about it.
I had to because I had to laugh about it because I had cried enough and nothing was changing. So I tried to be, I tried to just not think about it too much because some of the other women on that page, I got off lucky compared to some of the other patients that I have seen. And I feel guilty, griping about it, but that doesn't make what happened to me any less traumatic.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I went back up there again for a third time in July. July 8th was my second surgery.
So would this have been
And
2022 at this point then,
this is
or?
in 2022 at this point, yes.
Okay.
So she wanted me to wait a year. She goes, you have to wait a year before you can have any revisions or anything. And I told her, listen, a year's not going to work for me because I had something going on. Really, I just wanted them fixed ASAP.
I can't blame you.
I didn't I didn't know it, but the reason why she wanted us to wait a year is because the statute of limitations in Ohio is if you're past that 1 year, and I have talked to every attorney in Franklin County and they all tell me the same thing. The statute of limitations is 1 year. If you're
Mhm.
at 367 days, you're SOL.
So do you think she like hoodwinked you kind of on
Absolutely.
purpose? Yeah.
Absolutely, without a doubt in my mind, she told her patients to wait 1 year because it would put them outside that window of having possible litigation. So I went back up there in July. My husband came with me this time. I gave her a detailed email before I went up there of this is what I want done. I addressed specific things regarding the first surgery. I made a comment about the nipple piercing of the second surgery of the second piercing. Like I gave her a 3-page detailed itinerary of this is what I am expecting out of my surgery. Can you deliver this? And she said, all of that is everything that I do anyway. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you a chance to fix this because I get it. They call it practicing medicine for a reason, right? And everybody's body is different. Maybe I did something I wasn't supposed to. I don't know.
Sure.
So I went back up there. I had the surgery again, and I have that video as well. And she's talking about how we would just do this in the office, but she's having her implants exchanged. So I did have my implants exchanged. I had 365 cc's before, and they weren't big enough. So I had them switched out to 650s. So we go back up there on July 8th. I have the revision. I see the revision video and post-op pictures, and she did a much better job the second time than she did the first time. The second job is what I was expecting.
Mhm.
She did do a revision of the scars. She did do an implant exchange. I still feel some kind of way though because she only did a revision of the scars that were at the very forefront, where the tape came off after day 2.
Mhm.
She didn't redo these scars or the ones that are like underneath my armpit. The ones that are under my armpit are about an inch thick, a deep purple color, and just very, very, very unattractive. Um, after my second surgery, that was in July, I healed better from that than I did the first one because it was, much less intensive and everything.
Mhm.
I started. I reached out to her. It was either in early or mid December, and they said call us back after the first of the year. I didn't know it, but she had received her second warning from the state medical board. And then when I called in February, because they told me to call after the first year, it was either late January or early February. I was like, hey, I wanted to make an appointment to see Dr. Roxy about addressing like another area of my body. They go, well, she's not practicing right now because her license is suspended. And that's when I was like, oh, well, that's why she hasn't been on Snapchat. I thought she had just unfriended me or something. I don't know.
Sure, sure.
And then from there is when I found out that, she had been under investigation and all that.
How
And
did
at
all that
first
how did all that hit you? Sorry. You were probably gonna say that. Were you
yeah,
shocked or how did you
so
feel?
I was absolutely shocked. And for a while I tried to defend her. I was like, it's practicing medicine and everybody's body is different, and then I got added to that Facebook page and I started hearing the stories, and I was hearing the things that were said to me that was said to 50 other patients, and I'm like, okay, so
Mhm.
this wasn't just a one off. It wasn't. If you've got 50 people with the same exact problem on different bodies, they live in different areas, at different ethnicities, different age groups, different everything, what is the one common denominator there? Dr. Roxy. And I watched the live stream of when she went in front of the medical board and she tried to read like this 5-page letter and everything. It's true what they say about surgeons having a god complex, because she was like, I didn't adopt this Roxy persona. That's what everybody has called me, and I'll never live stream a video again. And, ma'am, it's not live streaming the surgeries that's the problem. It's the fact
Mhm.
that you were talking to the camera instead of looking at your patient. Like, you perforated somebody's bowel. Do you realize that you could become septic and die that way? Do you realize that untreated cellulitis can kill someone? I mean, if that infection had gotten into my blood, I could have died. And that's right there by my heart and my lungs. That's serious. All the board really wanted to hear her say was, "You're right. I'm sorry. Please teach me how to do better." But instead, she went in there trying to say, like, I didn't do anything wrong and I'm the victim. And it wasn't a surprise at all when they suspended her license. And I've seen some of the pictures of the other patients, and I had talked to, while I was still within that 1 year of my second surgery, I had talked to several attorneys, and they said, malpractice, it's very extensive, it's very expensive. The first law firm that had actually picked up the story and had started talking to people denied to take my case because there just wasn't enough money in it for them. They hadn't gotten the rest of the patients. Like, when I looked on Franklin County's website, I think there's like 22 pending litigations against her now. And
Mhm.
because I'm all the way in Florida, it didn't make the news here
Right.
back then. It's made the news now. Like, I mean, it made the news in the UK that a TikTok doc lost her license and everything. I mean, it's been everywhere now. I've seen several plastic surgeons to address issues that I'm still having. My implants are still too far laterally, like under my armpits, than they are in
Mhm.
the center. And I just found out, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that I am suffering from capsular contracture. And it's
What's that?
very rare. Capsular contracture is basically where scar tissue is forms around the breast implant, and eventually it hardens it and it like holds it in one spot. So the breast is no longer squishy and soft and like malleable.
Mhm.
It basically turns it into like this rock. It's a scar tissue that grows around it and just like holds it there. It's like a cast almost, but under the
Sure.
skin. And that's apparently it is a known complication of a negligent surgeon. But it's not very often that people as freshly post-op as I am. It's only 2023. I just had my surgery last year in July.
Mhm.
It's not very common for people who are only 15, 16 months out from their surgery to get capsular contracture unless there was a problem. So I talked to a bunch of lawyers, and this was before there were other plaintiffs and whatnot, and they said, unfortunately, there's not enough damage for it to make
Wow.
sense financially. And then once I passed that 1 year mark, and then other people started coming forward, I've talked to, um, I forget her name, but she's handling all of the lawsuits against Dr. Roxley in Franklin County. She's on the website. I called her practice and I talked to her, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to take this case." And I'm like, even though I have correspondence with her past that 1 year mark, she goes, "I don't think I could get that submitted as like actual treatment." She's like,
Mhm.
it's the last time she treated you. And I'm like, well, what do you think correspondence with a doctor is? That's treatment. I'm telling her, hey, I'm having problems with the work that you did on me.
Right. Right.
But the lawyer said, no, I'm not going to do it. And
What?
I have, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, you go ahead.
I've talked to other lawyers and they say the same thing, is that compared to a lot of the other patients, I am like one tater tot that you get in a kid's meal. I'm not big potatoes. I'm not the one that lost the abdominal muscle or had the perforated bowel. There's people who have it much worse than me.
Sure.
And I
Doesn't
truly
make
feel
your
for them.
situation any easier, though.
Exactly. I live in this body. And this is something that I did to feel good about myself, to love my body again, because I had a hard time accepting what my body looked like after my injury and after my service. And all I wanted to do was love myself again. And that's what she preached. Is she was always like, "You go, girl. You look so good. Damn!" Like if you watched her Snapchat video, she was your biggest cheerleader. And when I would send her my post-op pictures, "You look so good. You look so good." Ma'am, I have yellow leakage. I do not look good. Please don't lie to me. And I understand her wanting to be supportive and wanting her to like it came off as disgenuine
Mhm.
and tone deaf. It's
Yeah.
like she wasn't taking the concerns seriously. She wasn't. I don't even know if she looked at the pictures, because there's no way that somebody who is medically inclined could look at what I had happen and be like, yeah, that's totally fine. Tia, her nurse practitioner, Tia, had the nerve to say, I wish I could send you the pictures of mine because I had the same thing. What? Ma'am, I was in a nurse practitioner program before I was in a car accident and had to leave school. If you're a true nurse practitioner, there's no freaking way you could see this type of post-op complication and not freak out.
Mhm.
I'm running a 103-degree fever. I have yellow and green discharge, and my wounds opened.
What, are you gonna have to have another surgery? Or
I am, yes.
yeah.
So I went to see a surgeon here in Tampa. I have another consultation with a reconstructive specialist in Jacksonville. That's actually where I'm from. So I'm going to go see my family, and I'm going to go see this reconstructive specialist. Right now, my capsular contracture is not that bad,
So
and I
you've got a
don't
little bit of
know.
time.
I've got time, yes. If I choose to do it right now, I could. Um, but I am almost at 20,000 just in what I've paid to her. So we're still trying to cover financially from that.
Yeah, no kidding. And it ended up being 2, not 1 like you were originally budgeting for.
Yes.
What, you had mentioned that, and you kinda mentioned during our conversation too, that she did post, some videos of your procedure on TikTok.
Hmm.
Um, excuse me, I
Snapchat.
assume, or Snapchat, sorry. I assume you signed some sort of waiver or something, right? Or
I
and
did, yes.
and
And
tell me, what was that? I mean, still, I assume that was like a weird it was probably felt kind of weird seeing it on Snapchat. Tell me about that a little bit.
I actually liked it.
Did you? Yeah.
When yeah, so when I had my neck procedures, I watched the whole thing on a medical channel on YouTube, because
Mm.
you're going to be laying there on a table asleep. I want to know what's going to happen to my body. And some
Sure.
people don't want to know. They're like, oh my God, I don't want to see all that. I am the kind of person, I want to know what's going to happen to my body while I'm laying naked on a table. My life is in your hands. I'm intubated. I'm helpless. What are you going to do to me? I want to understand the procedure. I want to see the procedure. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to go to her, is because she did put them online. I did sign the release because I don't know what a breast augmentation entails. I don't know what a mastopexy entails. And nobody really does, because you can read about it in a book, but until you see it, that's what makes it different. And they recorded that kind of stuff for people in med school.
Sure.
They got to shadow surgeons, and that's what residency is all about, is learning. So if doctors can learn about it, Why can't the people who are having these procedures done, why can't we learn about it too? So I was actually a big fan of her being, so open and transparent. Like, this is what's going to happen in the OR, and this is how I do the procedure. And, I lift up the skin flaps, and then I pull everything down, and then I cut this. And then I really like that. I'm like, okay, so it's probably going to hurt here and it's going to hurt here. But if I see something here, it's okay. But if you see something there, that's when you freak out. I liked that idea. And
Made you
I
feel
screen
comfortable.
it did, yes. And I understand that's not for everyone, but it that's what made me feel comfortable is, okay, this is what's going to happen to my body.
Mhm. Do you feel? I mean, how do you feel in retrospect, knowing that that might have contributed to the issues you had? Though I guess that's it's like a double-edged sword in a way, you know.
Yeah. Um I do, hmm,
Maybe she
I
just didn't go
definitely
about it the
think,
right way.
yeah, I definitely think that she had a responsibility to make sure that the people coming in and out of the OR were sterile, were observing a sterile field, were keeping things clean. I definitely think that she failed with that aspect. I'm not going to say that I regret having my surgeries filmed, because A, now I have proof, and B, if it helped someone else, because like two of my friends, after I had my surgeries, they actually had surgeries, but with different surgeons. And they said, because of the video that you allowed them to take, because I screen recorded on my phone, it made me feel much more comfortable about it. And I had mine done, and theirs was fantastic. So yes, I think that it definitely kind of contributed to the non-sterile field. And maybe she was too busy talking to, because I can see on my video where she's uh talking to the camera, and she's not looking at the implant as she's washing it in the antibiotic solution. So maybe the implant wasn't completely sterilized. I don't know, because it's like maybe 4 seconds of a 2-minute clip, and I only see a small snippet of it. Maybe she did put it in the solution and let it sit there and like turn it around, make sure it's nice and coated. Maybe she didn't. I don't know, because I wasn't behind the camera when they were doing that.
Um, it's been such a multiple procedures. It's been a couple of years. How are you doing? I mean, how, like, mentally? It sounds like that would be kind of draining.
It's it's frustrating, especially because I'm in medicine. I was a medic in the military. I was in a nurse practitioner program before I was in a car accident that messed up my neck even more. So I'm angry because do no harm actually means something to people who are truly passionate about medicine. Even though I joined the military, I didn't join to be, I mean, yes, I joined to be a fighter and a warrior and all that, but I'm a healer. Like, I don't care what color your skin is, where you're from, who you pray to, who you love. I'm gonna help you regardless. And it's disappointing that someone who works so hard and could have had such a huge impact on people got so wrapped up in optics. And I mean, she had like a whole production team. She had like the weird stage lighting and the microphone that comes over, that like, she put so much work into the social media. And if you had just put that much effort into making sure that your patients were safe and that your procedures were sterile, and if you had been more of a doctor than a social media personality, you might still have your license and your patients might not have had their complications. And you could sit here and play the coulda shoulda woulda game until you're blue in the face. When I start feeling depressed about what I chose to do to my body, I have to remember that I did it with good intentions. Obviously, I know that there's risks with surgery, but it's not like I called up one day, it's like, hey, I want to do this. No, I did my research. I looked at the work of other doctors. I watched everything that she did. I asked questions. I did my due diligence. And like I said, it doesn't make what happened to me any less traumatic, but there are girls that are on that page that had it so much worse. So when I start feeling sorry for myself, I remember that there's a girl out there who doesn't have a stomach anymore. There's women out there who have scars as long as my legs that are like 2 inches deep from hip to hip. And I don't know if I could live like that. So if I've got, scars that can be covered with either a bra or a bathing suit or something, I try not to feel sorry for myself because I know that other girls got it so much worse.
You talked a little bit about, you mentioned that, this is kind of set you back like 20 some $1,000s. What kind of toll has it taken on you guys financially? And, how are you going to get out of that hole?
Well, I opened a dispute with Care Credit and Alphion, letting them know like, hey, it's not fraud because obviously I signed for it, but the
Mhm.
goods were they said it's a billing dispute, failure to deliver goods as promised. Care Credit denied that. I'm still waiting on hearing about Alphion. I live on my VA disability, which is it's not a lot, but I had some money set aside because I knew that this was something that I had wanted to do. Me and my husband had talked about it. I had it planned for a while, um, and the payment on the card was it wasn't above and beyond what we could afford. So the first time, the 10,900, we were able to manage that. The second surgery to fix what was wrong with the first surgery, one, she said she gave me a discount or I wasn't charged for something, and I absolutely was because I have the invoices of both surgeries. So my first one was 10,900 and my second one I think was 5,700. So it's and then with flights and you know Airbnbs and having to go back up there in December and all that. So we're not going to be able to take a vacation. We didn't get to go on vacation last year. We're not going to get to go on vacation this year. I mean, there are sacrifices that we have to make, and I'm angry about that. But like I said, I did choose to do this. Obviously, I didn't know I was going to have a complication and whatnot. So I've talked to the credit card companies. I've asked lawyers. I'm like, look, I don't even want any money from her. I just have her refund the remainder of like what I owe to the finance company and just call it even. Like I don't want her house. I don't want her car. I
Right.
don't want anything from her. I just want to be done and just move on and find someone who can fix them and give me something that's aesthetically pleasing that I feel good in my own body. And that's most likely we're going to be stuck with the bill.
Sorry.
It
Um,
sucks.
yeah, definitely. You had mentioned when we were talking over Facebook that you have videos and things. Would you
Hmm.
mind sharing those later on, if that's okay? We'd probably
Uh,
take the audio from it if that's cool with you.
yeah, absolutely. As long as you guys are okay with. I mean, I didn't edit the picture, so you'll see the wounds, you'll see my nipples, you'll see you'll see it all.
No, yeah, as anything that you're comfortable with, that's what's important, I think. So,
If if it can help somebody, if just one person can learn from it, I'm okay with it. You guys can show anything that you want to show. I'm not shy about it. That's why I signed the release that she could put it on Snapchat. You can
Mhm.
show anything you want to show. I am not shy about it.
Well, I really appreciate that, and yeah, I'm with you. Hopefully we can alert some more people to this. I was gonna add too. I don't know if you have voicemails from her or anything like that that you saved, like
I have
literally.
emails.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if you
I
don't mind sharing some of that at some point too.
Not at all. I have an
Um,
entire folder, everything that I got from her. And like I said, whenever this first came out, I tried to defend her. I was like, "We love you, Dr. Roxy. It's
mhm.
I thought it was just maybe 4 or 5. I didn't realize this was as bad as it was. I didn't
Sure.
realize that, this is 200, 300, 400. I don't know how many people are on this Facebook now, but it's a lot.
Hmm. I think
I
it's
thought it was
2,500.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was that bad. I didn't realize that it was that widespread. I thought it was just, oh, 4 or 5 people had an adverse reaction or they had a complication and they're trying to blame the surgeon. I didn't realize that it was like almost, I think, 1 in 4 patients.
Seems really high.
And I've talked to other doctors, and they'll do 3, maybe 4 procedures a day, depending on what the procedures are. She was doing upwards of 10 or 11 procedures a day. She said that she would operate for 12 to 14 hours a day.
Oh
She's the only surgeon. She didn't have, I mean, she had a surgical first assist, but she's the only surgeon.
my. I know. I think I saw something that she was doing well over 1,000 procedures a year, and typically a surgeon will do like 300 some.
Yes. So it was literally, it felt like a pump and dump, especially afterwards trying to get in contact, because when someone has cut into you, you want to talk to that person who was
Sure.
in there that cut that skin. I never talked to her after the first one. And then Dr. Domingo, apparently, he's not a surgeon. He was a ER physician, and he had the gall to tell my husband, um,
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Hey, how you doing? My name's Kirby.
Nice to meet you, Kirby and Max.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. Domingo. I was in the military, so I did combat medicine, and I called and I was like, dude, I've seen wounds just like this, and this is not right. And he was like, no, it's fine. Don't take her to the hospital. I'm like, bro, I'm seeing the stitches rip and the skin open. She's going to the hospital. And they ended up doing a culture swab, and she had cellulitis. And Dr. Domingo and them had called in a prescription of like a generic antibiotic, but because of the cellulitis, it wasn't effective.
Mm-hmm.
They had to do the culture. Once they did the culture, they got back to us, I think 4 days later, and they were like, hey, this is the only antibiotic that will fix this. And she's probably already mentioned like how bad the scars were and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it was ridiculous because they kept telling me stop taking her to the hospital.
I don't know if you can see this or not.
Oh wow.
Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
I put white over the
That's
areola,
that's
but
scary.
that's what they look like.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's what it was looking like, and we actually sat there and watched the skin tear open.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, I'm taking her to the hospital. I don't care what you're not here to look at it.
He was a family practitioner.
And like she said, he claimed to be like a surgeon's assistant or whatever, but he was just a family medicine doctor, just a regular MD.
The ironic part I feel like about this, right, is you guys both have medical backgrounds, so it's like you kind of know a problem when you see one, probably.
Yeah. I mean, because like I dealt with a lot of. We used to have to deal with, if the locals got injured overseas or something, we would give medical aid, and I've seen a lot of crazy stuff. And when I saw that, I'm like, yo, that reminds me of this dude's leg that was sewn together with fishing line, and it was all infected and everything. And I was like, you're going to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to happen.
What Kirby? What was this like for you watching your wife deal with this? I mean, that had to be hard.
I mean, I knew that, like, I knew she was tough. I knew she, obviously coming from a medical background, she knew and knew there were risks, but I was more pissed off because how much money they took from her, and
Sure.
then the lack of aftercare that she didn't get. And it's like, she's doing so many cases a day. Imagine what all these other people are going through. And I was just pissed. And I don't know if she talked about, we went back and I talked to the doctor face to face, and I was like, look, I want this fixed, I want this fixed. I made all these demands, and she promised the world, and she halfway delivered, and they still need to be fixed. And it's like, if we get them fixed now, we're like 25, almost $30,000 deep, when this should have been simply just 10 grand, and you're good to go.
Right. 3 times the cost.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. And I don't call them names anymore, but I used to call them Frank and Barb.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah, I named them because they were scary. So, but yeah, that's all I got, man. I'll give it back to her.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for being willing to chat.
So what's kind of funny is after she got, under investigation and all that, she made all of her social medias private.
Right. I
She
saw that now. Most
She
of it
does
is.
not know that I'm talking to you. She still has me on Instagram.
What?
The last time she put anything up there was, you don't have to tell your side of the story. Time will. And that was, oh God, when was that? It was sometime after July 12th. So it was right after she lost her license. Which I think is funny that I'm still on there. Because apparently anybody else who has spoken out against her, she has blocked and removed.